Welcome to you, Mother Truckers. This week, we're taking a pit stop into a couple of flash fiction stories you sent our way. And let me tell you, these aren't your typical bedtime stories. We're diving headfirst into how heroism pops up in the most unexpected corners and, the surprising costs it can carry.
Absolutely. These stories really get you thinking about the essence of heroism. Is it a quality you're born with, or maybe can it be thrust upon you? And what happens when ordinary people find themselves in, well, extraordinary circumstances?
Okay, let's jump into our first story, Blindshot. Picture a quiet village where life is probably pretty predictable. Then you have Liam, a young guy who's likely more comfortable with, a whittling knife than a longbow. During a village archery match, probably meant for a bit of fun and maybe some local bragging rights, his arrow goes wildly off course.
What's intriguing immediately is that this isn't just an embarrassing miss. Liam's stray shot, it hits a hidden spy, someone scouting the village for the raiders they all fear. Suddenly, this young man, probably the village goofball moments before, becomes Blindshot, their accidental protector.
Talk about a life-altering moment. He's gone from being the butt of jokes to the village's supposed savior in the blink of an eye. Can you imagine the sheer weight of that expectation? This kid, who is probably just hoping to blend back into the crowd, is now their beacon of hope against a very real threat.
And the story doesn't shy away from showing how unprepared he is. He's given weapons he doesn't know how to handle, thrust into training that's described as, well, brutally frustrating.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder about the effectiveness of forced heroism. Does the title alone grant the ability?
Exactly. And it's not all parades and cheering, right? You get the sense that some villagers see him not as a hero, but as a liability, a walking testament to their vulnerability.
Huh?
This accidental success has painted a target on his back, and they fear what will happen when his luck inevitably runs out. It's a lonely position to be in.
It raises a fascinating point about the nature of leadership and the burden of expectation. How does an individual cope when an identity is thrust upon them, especially one they feel completely unequipped for? And how does a community reconcile its fear with its hope in such a situation?
So Liam's not exactly strategizing battle formations in his sleep. He's probably just staring at the ceiling in a cold sweat. But then, staring at that infamous errant arrow, a desperate but clever idea sparks. It's a solution born not of skill, but of a deep understanding of his own limitations and, the environment around him.
What's really smart here is that Liam recognizes he can't fight like a seasoned warrior. He doesn't have the training or the experience.
Right.
Instead, he leverages his familiarity with the woods, the one area where he likely feels some control.
Right. Instead of a head-on confrontation, he uses the woods as his weapon. His arrows become tools of deception, tipped with irritants to mimic swarms of insects, placed strategically to create the illusion of a hidden force watching their every move. It's a brilliant example of using your weaknesses as strengths.
And the news of the fallen scout has already sown seeds of doubt and caution among the raiders, right?
Yeah.
Liam's tactics amplify that paranoia. They were expecting an easy raid, but instead they're met with unsettling quiet and the constant feeling of being observed, of unseen threats.
And it works. Their advance falters, they become hesitant, and eventually they retreat. The villagers, witnessing this, are emboldened and manage to drive them back completely. But here's a twist. The cheers and praise go to the veteran fighters, the ones who stood their ground in the village.
Not Liam.
Not to the unseen architect of their defense.
This highlights a crucial aspect of how we perceive heroism. The visible act of combat often overshadows the strategic thinking and the subtle influences that can be just as decisive. Liam's contribution was vital, but it wasn't the kind of heroism that earns immediate public acclaim, was it?
Not at all. And Liam, he quietly returns to his former life, to his anonymity. But something has shifted within him. He's realized that victory doesn't always come from brute force. Sometimes it's about cleverness and orchestrating chaos, even if you're the most unlikely candidate. He goes back to his whittling, but now he knows that even an accidental stroke of luck can be turned into a weapon with the right kind of thinking.
So, the takeaway from Blindshot seems to be that heroism can bloom in the most unexpected individuals, and that true strength isn't always about physical might. It forces us to consider what truly constitutes a hero, and do the intentions behind the act matter as much as the outcome?
Good questions. Now, let's shift gears completely and delve into our second flash fiction story, The Empty Armor. This one takes a much more mythical and perhaps even tragic look at heroism. We're introduced to Maya, who inherits this ancient, incredibly heavy suit of armor from her grandfather. He was once a legendary figure, but in his final years he'd become frail and diminished within this imposing metal shell. His dying words are this haunting plea: "Close the void, it hungers." Maya initially dismisses it as, the ramblings of an old man.
But then the unbelievable happens.
Yeah.
The void appears not a natural disaster, but a tear in the sky that literally erases entire towns.
Yeah.
People aren't killed, they simply cease to exist. It's a deeply unsettling and existential threat.
Absolutely terrifying. And it's this unimaginable fear that drives Maya to put on the armor. But this isn't a superhero origin story.
No.
No, the armor doesn't grant her instant power. Instead, it starts to drain her life force. It seems to resonate with something deep within her, a connection to this void her grandfather spoke of.
Wow. So it's taking something from her.
Uh,
What's particularly compelling is the connection to her grandfather. His whispers begin to echo within the helmet, urging her onward. It's almost as if his essence has become intertwined with the armor, a constant reminder of the immense responsibility she's now carrying, and perhaps the ultimate price.
The story paints this incredibly eerie picture of the void's destruction, perfectly preserved, empty houses, lives frozen mid-action, just gone.
Gone.
Just like that.
And the enemies aren't your typical monsters. They're described as formless shadows that seem to feed on the very energy of Maya's attacks. And here's a chilling detail: the armor itself hums with a hungry energy as it absorbs their essence.
So the armor is feeding, too. Each victory, each shadow vanquished, results in a flicker of light as a town is restored. Maya becomes known as the Void Knight, but it's a title heavy with dread, not just hope. Because with every success, the armor becomes heavier, the drain on her life force intensifies, and the whispers within the helm hint at her own inevitable demise.
It's a stark contrast to the traditional hero's journey, where the hero grows stronger with each challenge.
Maya is described as having an almost stubborn will. She's not a brilliant strategist, but she possesses this unwavering determination. And in a really interesting move, she doesn't just focus on fighting. She rallies the rescued townsfolk to gather resources, preparing for a future that she is quite literally sacrificing herself to create.
That's profound. The final confrontation takes place in a fortified town square. Maya becomes this symbol of defiance, not through overwhelming power, but through her sheer resilience. She is buying time for everyone else.
Exactly. And when the darkness surges, she stands firm, the armor acting as an anchor as her very life force pours into it.
Just pouring out.
And the sealing of the void isn't this explosive, triumphant moment, but a shuddering gasp, as if it's finally overwhelmed by her immense sacrifice. The Void Knight is gone, leaving behind only the empty suit of armor.
Wow. Just the armor remains. What's truly impactful about the ending is the reaction of the people. Their mourning isn't one of despair, but of quiet resolve. They understand the enormity of her sacrifice and are determined to protect the future she has bought for them.
And the armor itself becomes a sacred object, not worshipped, but enshrined as a powerful reminder of extraordinary courage. The story passed down isn't of a mythical warrior, but of Maya, the one who gave everything to save them all. Her legend lives on in their quiet determination.
So the empty armor presents us with a very different kind of heroism, one defined by profound selflessness and, well, complete sacrifice. It forces us to confront the question, what is the ultimate price of protecting others? And can true heroism sometimes mean the erasure of oneself?
So in these two flash fiction stories, we see these incredible contrasts in how ordinary individuals step into extraordinary circumstances. In Blindshot, it's a complete accident that thrusts Liam into a heroic role, forcing him to use his wits instead of might. It really makes you consider how significant impacts can sometimes arise from the most unexpected sources and individuals, and how perceived weaknesses can be surprisingly potent. What struck you most about Liam's journey from village joke to this unconventional savior?
What really stood out to me in Liam's story was the subversion of the typical hero archetype. He doesn't suddenly gain incredible fighting skills. He remains fundamentally the same person who simply applies his existing knowledge in a novel way. It highlights that heroism isn't always about transforming oneself, but about creatively utilizing the resources and understanding you already possess,
Yeah, that's a great point. Then you have the empty armor, where Maya's heroism is a conscious, unwavering act of self-sacrifice. She doesn't gain power, she steadily gives her life force. This story really underscores the immense and sometimes ultimate cost of protecting others, and the idea that true heroism can sometimes mean willingly becoming nothing for the sake of everything. What resonated most with you about Maya's transformation from someone inheriting a legend to becoming the legend herself, even in her absence?
For me, Maya's story emphasizes the sheer power of unwavering will in the face of overwhelming adversity. Even without traditional strength or skill, her absolute commitment to stopping the void and her willingness to pay the ultimate price define a deeply profound form of heroism, one rooted in pure selflessness and a profound sense of responsibility.
Both of these flash fiction stories, though brief, offer such compelling and contrasting perspectives on what it means to be a hero, one through accidental ingenuity, the other through deliberate self-annihilation. They both leave you pondering the diverse forms courage can take and the often unseen contributions that can lead to salvation. What kind of unexpected hero stories do these remind you of in other fiction or even in history? We'd love for you to think about that.
These tales, while short, certainly provide a lot to contemplate about the nature of heroism and sacrifice.
Hmm.
We hope this pit stop on You Mother Truckers podcast has given you some fascinating food for thought.
Absolutely. Rate and follow you Mother Truckers for more captivating mysteries from the world of flash fiction.